Welcome back to What Would It Cost? Are you looking for the perfect employee? Today we'll have all that info for you.
We're excited to host our guest, Daniela Correa from DC Global Talent.
You bought a shed in Windsor?
You made money in the housing market last year? No way.
Anything you shot on you would have made up.
What would it cost?
That's the $1 million question. You're looking at North Bay now is at $1 million. I don't even think they hand you the keys anymore. What is it going to cost?
How much? Hi, my name's Nicholas Regina.
My name's Michael Sakuro.
And you're listening to
What Would It Cost?
Is that good? How's it going?
Good.
Right on.
Yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no problem. So give us a bit about your background.
Sure. So I own a hospitality recruitment agency, and I started this business about 6-7 years ago, and I work exclusively pretty well with hotels, restaurants, and food service. But over the last couple of years, we've been expanding into some other industries like finance and just helping businesses scale.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about the climate for the industry coming out of COVID, I guess, since that's the hot topic with all these opportunities that have arose from different industries, and what that's looked like, and how you pivoted and throughout, and how you continue to. And yeah, we know you're kicking some serious butt, so tell us a bit about that, right?
Amazing. Yeah, I'd love to share. So the hospitality industry was certainly impacted the most out of any industry in Canada during the pandemic.
Yeah.
There was 1 million jobs lost in the first 2 months. So we're still doing a huge recovery. For myself personally, it affected me in other ways because I was almost entirely working in the Caribbean market. So for me, when the pandemic happened, my business pretty well was dead because borders closed down. So if borders were closed, hotels weren't operating. And if hotels weren't operating, then they obviously didn't need any talent.
Right.
So I did a huge pivot and I started focusing in the US market. I think the industry is still, we're certainly a lot busier and we've recovered, but not fully. And Canada is feeling the effects of that enormously, and a lot of people have chosen to just go into other industries. So there's a huge talent gap, a skill shortage right now, and it's a war for talent, not only in hospitality but in a lot of industries.
Right.
Yeah,
especially with a lot of jobs being lost and like these companies being able to revamp, if you want to call it that. I'm sure they're coming for you to see, okay, who's the next best ones to come in for this new wave, because they're able to, I guess, let them go during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge factor into like why it's so hard to find talent, because
Right.
a lot of employees are considering, who they want to work for now and how that employer treated their team during the pandemic. Did they try to keep them on or did they let them go right away?
Right.
But even before the subsidiaries came on, did they, try and help them out? So
Definitely
that's a
see
huge
someone's true colors through the
Right,
thick of
okay.
things.
That's a
And-
huge
That's a good way to look
factor.
at it, yeah.
And it's a lot like, employees are interviewing their employers now. It's not necessarily the other way around.
Right. Yeah. And I know from firsthand experience, as we're scaling our company, that it's been something where the word that resonates with me on an ongoing basis when working with you is efficiency, right? Because it allows us to continue to run our business and do the day-to-day, and putting the hours there while you're looking out for our best needs when it comes to getting that employee to fit within a very specific and tight box that you seem to continuously do a great job with. Yeah. So I want to pat you on the back for that, first of all, and second of all, let you know that it's something that's been good for us. And yeah, talk a little bit more about what other businesses you've helped and how you've done that in other industries as well.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And thank you for that.
No problem.
So yeah, essentially an employer would come to me when they have a need that they need to fill. So whether it's just a gap in their department or they're building an entirely new department, a new business, or I do a lot of pre-opening. So like I mentioned, I work a lot with hotels. So when a hotel is in pre-opening stage, then they'll come to me and, look for department heads. So those department heads will then be in charge of recruiting their team. So I'm really focused on strategic roles. And HR, although recruitment falls under HR is a beast on its own. That's, payroll, learning and development, training and development, safety. It's all of that falls under HR. So oftentimes, and payroll, I don't think I mentioned payroll. So oftentimes there's just no bandwidth for small companies to have their HR person be focused on recruitment.
Right.
So someone comes to me because, you know, they're looking for that efficiency, and that's when we, you know, will deliver on exactly what they need in terms of the profile, the salary range. You know, sometimes we do have to kind of nudge our clients and tell them, you know, you need to be flexible in certain areas, because people aren't just looking for money now either, right? Especially after the pandemic. Like hybrid working from home scenarios are just so prevalent, and you know, people are putting a lot of emphasis on that, and there's this old school mentality that people have to be in the office. I think it is important to build culture and build a strong dynamic with your team, and that trust and rapport. But the pandemic has just really shifted employees' mindset. So it is tough to find someone who, you know, checks off all those boxes that make sense for the employer and the employee.
Yeah, a lot of
it's interesting. It's going to, it's more so lifestyle than salary.
Yeah.
What would it cost?
The $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
So what would it cost? So an employer, there's a couple different models on how someone could pay a recruitment agency. So there's contract recruiters, which I don't do. So that would be, you know, you're paying me every single time the employee gets paid. So they're not your employee, they're mine, they're on my payroll. So I'm making a cut off of, you know, every paycheck. So if you're paying them, you know, and these usually works for lower skilled employees or short-term contracts, like a project. So a lot of IT people work on projects this way. You know, we need to develop a software in 6 months. And so, you know, in that case, the employer doesn't want to take on the risk of the liability or, you know, the healthcare or CPP, any of that. So they'll pay them an hourly wage. Let's say that's $50 an hour that they have in their budget to pay this person. Well, then I'll turn around and, you know, do my markup and pay them what I think is fair. So, you know, they really pay me and then I'll pay them a different way. I don't do it that way because I'm focused on long-term employment. So I charge a percentage on your first year annual salary. And, you know, it differs between companies, but what is pretty common is between the 18% to 22%. So just for easy numbers, you know, if someone's making $100,000, then, you know, you'll make that 18% on that person's first year annual salary.
Right. And that's standard across all industry for the most part?
That's standard, yeah. So you can Google that.
You
know, some people might, when I started off, I was charging 10%, and that was 7 years ago. So that was just for me to like get into the market. And then, you know, I've slowly increased my fees year to year, and I do it to stay competitive, but also inflation, right? Like you can't, money today isn't what money was 10 years ago, so.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then in terms of, you know, when you're finding employees or finding the employers, so do you have like employees or potential employees that come to you, or is you're always putting out the ad for like we're looking to recruit?
Yeah, we have a lot of passive candidates. So because I've been doing this for 7 years, and we've pretty well organically grown the business and a lot through referrals. So when I will place someone, they'll tell their whole network of friends, especially because we work with such cool employers and locations and beautiful places in the world. Friends will ask like, oh, how did you get this job? So then all of a sudden I have the network of that, you know, candidate or that talent's pool as well. So we get passive candidates all the time applying for jobs through us on our website, our career page. They'll see us post jobs on Instagram or LinkedIn, and they'll, even if we don't actively have a job for them, they'll say, hey, you know, I just want to give you my resume if anything pops up that fits my profile. So we do have a passive pool, but we always headhunt. So no matter what, if we get a new job today, we'll definitely contact the people already in our talent pool, but then we'll also, you know, reach out to net new candidates. So we're always growing that network.
Tell us a little bit about your background in where you went to school and your educational side of things, and how it grew into how it grew into you taking on this career.
Sure. So I went to school for HR, so that is my background. I took business and majored in HR, so I did Georgian and Laurentian. And I did a co-op in Brazil, actually, for a liquor beverage company. They were a distributor, Ambev. They do like Brahma, Skol, all the big brands. Eisenhower Busch is like the long word. I probably butchered that. But so I got into HR, and then my first real job, I guess you could say my corporate job, was at KPMG. And I started working like really quickly. I was 22 when I had my first like 9 to 5, and my business card. I was on university in Dundas, and it all seemed cool, but it was like very boring. Yeah. And I quickly realized that, accounting and auditing was not an industry that I wanted to be in.
Yeah.
So I moved into marketing about a year and a half later. I was working with marketing agencies, and that's how I was introduced to experiential marketing. I was working with really cool brands and just doing activations. And I was recruiting a lot of brand ambassadors and promo models, and it's a bit how we connected as well, just because I would recruit a lot of people in the hospitality industry, but for nightlife. And but I had my full-time 9-to-5 job working at a marketing company, one of the biggest in Canada. They're called Mosaic, and they only work with Fortune 500 companies. So I was working exclusively on the Labatt account. And I took a holiday to the Cayman Islands. My girlfriend went to law school there. And it's not really a place that many people go because there's not all-inclusive properties. So it's pretty pricey. But I had a free place to stay, and, why not? And so I went there a few times. And on one of my trips, I was offered a job. And I'd just been promoted. But I was like, you know what? I've been working 9 to 5 forever from what it seems. I was still so young. And so I took it, and I moved to Cayman. I was working for a rum distillery, and I did that for a bit. And then I moved to a liquor distributor company that they also made rum, Tortuga, if you guys know the Tortuga rum cakes. So that's who I was working for. The actual creator of Tortuga, his name is Robert Hamady. He's amazing. They were the biggest exporter in all of the Caribbean was Tortuga cakes. So that was pretty cool. And I was visiting bars and hotels and restaurants, and my job was to sell our liquor beverages and our brands. So I would connect with the bar managers and restaurant managers, and it'd be 9 a.m. in the morning, and we're sampling rum or sampling wine, and it was wild, but it was fun. And you get chatty after a few drinks, and so I tell them about my background in recruitment. And they would be like, okay, well, we're actually looking for a bartender. Do you know anyone who'd want to come here? Yeah. And then it was like, we really need a pastry chef. Do you know anyone? Yeah. And I've always loved business. And I was like, I think this could be something. So I started DC Global Talent, and it really just organically grew. I opened 2 hotels in Cayman, pretty well back to back. Margaritaville was one, and I sent a ton of people from Toronto down there. And then the Kimpton Seafire was another, which is, for people who understand hotels, they're a 5-diamond Forbes property. So that's really up there in terms of service level. And I just used those success stories as case studies to build my business. And that's kind of how
Very
I'm
cool.
here today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So now going back to the recruitment side.
Yeah.
So we'll call it talent-wise, what you're looking for. Is there a certain cutoff you have, or a minimum? So for example, you're not gonna. Are you looking for anybody that's looking for a minimum wage or $20 an hour, or do you have high-end executive CEOs, VPs? They want to shift. They're looking to make their $300,000-400,000 a year.
Yeah.
So do you have a range of where you sort of cap it?
We have a sweet spot. So our sweet spot is at management director level. That's what we get called on for the most.
Okay.
But of course, the higher the salary, the more money. So we'd love to be at the executive level. We did just recruit a managing director and a VP of marketing. We hired your VP of marketing as well. And we just did another VP of sales and marketing for another company. That's the spot we would love to be in. Yeah. But we also the beauty of being with the manager director level as well as people, there's still room to grow with these people. So they're still very hungry, and it's nice. And you feel like you're really changing someone's life when you, to an extent anyways, you're providing them with an opportunity that they can really grow in. At that very senior level, it's almost you cap out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we try and stay there, in a salary role, at minimum a supervisor.
Okay.
But we do get called on for lower level talent, and we just don't have the capacity to take it on because we have to be strategic with our time, right? Where's the opportunity cost? At this point, I have a team, and it's just more valuable for them to focus their time on something that's going to give us a bigger return. But anytime there's volume, then it's something we can consider, absolutely. We won't do a one-off of a line cook, but you're opening a franchise restaurant and you need 50 of them, sure, we can talk.
Right.
So for the bigger corporations and companies that are hiring on new staff all the time, and there's a bit of a revolving door, just given, how big they are, what does that look like for them? Like, do they bring this service in-house, or do you work with those companies as well, and it makes sense for them to outsource it? Have you been asked to come and be a company's in-house? Because I could see it being something that becomes very costly for them ongoing, that they would just want to house that on top of the HR, right? So how does that work?
So they definitely, companies will not use an external recruiter or recruitment agency for their entire recruitment, because like you said, it's very costly. They, especially the bigger companies, they'll have in-house recruiters on salary, but there's just so many roles. So for the more strategic roles that it's like, this position is like crucial for us, it's critical, they're going to open a new region or, be owning a territory, whatever it is, then they'll go outsource the position. So they pretty well exhaust their efforts first before they'll come to me. So they would have already tried using it, but like I said, like HR, there's so many other factors of HR, and it just may be that the recruitment team can't take it on. They have 50 roles, and they can only work on so many. We are like a strategic partner for strategic roles, or companies that don't have an HR team yet, they're just smaller.
Has it ever been something where a company's growth has been exponential and they said, Daniela, can you come in and consult this department that we want to grow, set us up with the fundamentals, and have us be able to kind of bounce off that? Like, is that a job that's popped up at all?
Yeah, so I did do that with a property in Montego Bay, actually. I came in as a consultant, and I essentially trained their HR team to do the recruitment. And set up like their SOPs, their standard operating procedures, and really kind of train them on how to do that. I was still involved in the recruitment at the more senior level, but they, every company should have an HR team that could at least take on some recruitment at the more like junior, lower skilled level, right?
So what would it cost, like, because you're doing a lot of traveling across across the world, what would it cost in these different markets, in these different industries, like in regards to salaries and compensation, and how do you find that is different from our market here? Like, what's the climate in these other countries? And like a salary for a big hotel management, and how that differs from what the salaries are over here. Just a bit going into what it costs kind of.
I think there's a lot of factors. So like, how big is the property? Like, how many keys? What's the average daily rate? So also where's the hotel located? Like I do a lot of work in the Cayman Islands. It's tax free, and that's great, but it's very expensive. It's one of the most expensive places to live in the world. So like, salaries will reflect those factors as well. I do some work in Nashville with hotels in Nashville. The cost of living in Nashville is way less than New York City. So people are flexible on salaries when it's like, I'm leaving a place where, the cost of living is so much higher. So it could be relative. So it's not really fair to say, like, it's competitive. They're certainly competitive, but for the market. And then also there's different class of businesses, right? Like, an all-inclusive hotel is going to pay different than a luxury premium hotel, because like the service you're providing is different. So a general manager at one of those properties is not going to make what a general manager makes in, let's say, Anguilla or Grenada, because they're charging different, right? The expectation is different. So there's these different factors. And that's like a reason why I like have strategically chosen to focus on that sort of level of properties and business, because they're just more rewarding.
So when it comes to like one of your executives that you're helping place in a position, how does it look for, I guess, we want to call it that full package. It's not just about the salary. So moving the family, cost of living, whatever it may be, travel expenses. So what's that package look like for them?
Sure.
And who's taking care of that cost?
Absolutely. So for any role, if you're relocating, the employer will pay for your work permit and your relocation. So flights and a relocation allowance.
Okay.
Depending on the employer as well, they'll, even take on the expenses that you're going to incur. Let's say, you're going to lose your last month's rent. They'll cover that cost. They'll cover the cost of like extra luggage. And then they'll give you temporary accommodation when you arrive. at least. So some islands expect you to pay your own accommodation. And then others, if it's so remote, like where are you going to live? So then they do provide you with accommodation or a living allowance. And then school could be really costly for families. So that's a huge factor when I'm recruiting as well. Like in Cayman, it's 20,000 USD a year per child to go to school.
What age?
Any age, because
Really?
they can't use the public school system. They have to go to a private school.
If they're foreigners?
If they're an expat, a foreign worker. So now, your salary, let's say it's 80K, still a decent salary, but you have 2 kids. Well, now your salary is 40K, right? So it's just no longer feasible for someone with a child. So, so all those factors are included, and that's a reason why a lot of employers come to recruiters too, because you can't necessarily advertise like we don't want a family, because they would love a family, but it's just they know that they're going to get to that stage at the end and they're going to exhaust all this time in interviews, and then it's going to be like, well, we know that this person, when they find out what the cost of the school is, they're going to back out. So clients will come to an external recruiter and tell them exactly what they want because they can.
Right.
And and we're just trying to save them time and money, so we're going to find them that. But there are certain locations that do pay for school and pay for full accommodation. It's at the executive level for sure. They will, because they're just higher paying roles, but not every job will, not every market will. So it really just depends. But you should ask your recruiter these questions before, you really get deep into like interviews and stuff like that. We don't provide a service for people if they're like, could you find me a job? Okay, we're not going to go out there and find you a job. If I have a job that's open for you, like I'll place you in the job. But if I don't, like, I'll let you know when I do.
So it's B2B.
It's all B2B.
And then you'll look out for B2C when you got to fill a position.
Well,
the client being the employee.
Like, let's say an amazing person falls into my inbox. I'm not going to go out there and like search for a job that fits your qualifications. It's not how my business works. Like if I look for people who fit the jobs I already have, because those are the contracts I already have.
Yeah, so you're working for the company, not
I work for the company. I don't work. Exactly.
That makes total sense, because then it's like if there's not an opening for a job, and now you have this responsibility of finding an employer, that just it seems backwards. Well,
also like the employer hasn't committed to the employer hasn't committed to paying a recruiter. So like I could message them and be like, hey, I have this perfect candidate. I saw you have this job and I have this perfect candidate for you. They're like, okay, that's great. Like, you know what I mean? Tell them to apply. The job's online. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
it makes a lot of sense. You're working for the employer, not the employee.
Yeah. It's almost looking at it from a broker's perspective. If a deal comes your way and you don't have to co-broker it and pay out an expense on that, it's all net profit.
Seller's agent, buyer's agent.
It's funny because sometimes candidates will ask me when they like send me their resume. They'll be like, oh, so what's it going to cost me? And I'm like, it doesn't cost you anything. You know what I mean? Like, because they're probably wondering, well, how does this person get paid? You know what I mean? But like, I don't ever take money from a candidate. It's not how it works, because I'm not searching, like I'm not your personal recruiter. You know what I mean? I think there are people that do that, maybe, but I think that would be really difficult, and that's not like anything I'm interested in doing. That's for sure.
You're going against the grain, it would seem. On that end.
So what's next for DC Global Talent? What's the growth? I know you're talking about the U.S. a bit. Going to that market. So what's on the horizon?
So what's next for DC Global Talent? So we've grown a lot, thank God. The pandemic was really scary, but last year we tripled the size of the team, because like for 4 years it was just me.
Put it there, girl.
And now I have 3 full-time employees plus myself, and we're doing a lot of work in North America now, in the US particularly, and we're starting to dabble more in Canada. But the goal is really just we want to stay niche because it's what we're good at. And I find that you can't be good at everything.
Right.
And so we really speak the language. We really understand the industry. And now, like, it's a blessing that we don't take on just like any job. Like, we can be more choosy with who we do business with. and that's great. So just focusing on like quality clients instead of, quantity. We just want quality, and and just ensuring that we're delivering and continuing to like organically grow, but being more strategic as well. So we've invested a lot of money in like tools and automation and different things that could make us efficient. So continuing to like evolve that way, and
cool.
And just growing the team. And
That's awesome.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the award you won. I know you won an award. It'd be nice for everyone to understand that. And, yeah.
So I was awarded Top Recruiter Award, and another award actually. Last year we won 2 for Best Hospitality Recruitment Agency in Canada. So
congrats.
Thank you.
She says it very modestly.
I know.
Like it's not a big accomplishment. That's cool.
That was really nice. So it's been great.
Cool. And I just want to say good on you too for understanding your niche and wanting to go deep with it as opposed to wide in the industry. Michael and myself have it etched on our business card holders: the dog who chases 2 rabbits caught neither. So it's like just really focus on that, hone in on it, enjoy it, right? Because you're able to do that when you don't spread thin, and master it and be the best in Canada, right? So,
Thank you. I agree.
It's good.
Absolutely.
It's good. Thank you very much for today and your time. We know you're super, super busy, so it means the world you'd sit down with us. And
thank you.
Really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having me.
No
It's been
problem.
fun.
Sure.
And where can everybody check you out?
Sure. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on there, Daniela Correa, or go to dcglobaltalent.ca or Instagram, DC Global Talent, and you'll see all of our jobs and opportunities listed there.
Amazing.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Be sure to check us out on all your favorite streaming platforms. Like, share, repost, and we'll see you next week.
Next on What Would It Cost?
It's artistic what I do for my vocation, which is designing and building.
Right.
It's still creative. And I've always enjoyed that. I've been
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that for
yeah.
like 35 years.
Right.
So that tells the audience how old I am. Getting old. In the beginning, there wasn't such a focus on design, but today I think design is so important because the products are changing. The technology is changing, and all the finishes, and there's so much selection. Plus, with the internet, people are always, tuning in to what's out there.
Yeah.
I was in the band, but we were just kids. But for some reason, we kind of got success. Like, people liked what we were doing.
Yeah.
Our songs were good.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Yeah. We got signed by a major record company. As a kid, you're thinking, what the hell? You just dream of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.